me, and I became acquainted with him, and of course the story goes on and on and on. I know I don't have enough time in this particular segment right here to go into that, but I met Bill Allen back in 1999 out there at Riverbend Prison.
Very good. And of course, let us take this first commercial break, and then we'll come back and we'll start with you, and we'll get the whole story in reference to the Bill Allen case. We'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Pastor Walker, Tisha Thompson, and Dr. Charles Kimbrough, members of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And we're talking about the very, very controversial case of Bill Allen. And let's have you, Pastor Walker, to sort of give us an overview in a real sense. Take a couple of 3 minutes to give us an overview of the situation that Bill has found himself in, and why all of these folks have gathered together in an attempt to try to make an appeal for his freedom. Give us as much information as you can.
Well, Dr. Haney, I think one of the things is, when it comes to the Bill Allen story, is that you're not looking at, see, a couple of police officers were killed in Nashville, Tennessee back in 1968. I think Dr. Kimbrough said it was January of 1968. At that time, I was about 12 years old, about to turn 13. And you know, the climate in 1968 Nashville, you know, with all the racial stresses and all the things like that, riots that had been taking place and all kind of stuff. And you had college student that was definitely actively involved in the civil rights movement, social injustice, voter registration, all the things that go along with that. And Bill Allen fit into that group. He was in college. He was a student in college. He was a progressive student in college. So you're not talking about somebody that ran around with a criminal mindset, with a criminal attitude, committing crimes. This was the Bill Allen of that day. He was in college. He was pursuing a medical degree, I think. And of course, something had happened in Nashville at that time, and for some odd reason, they got singled out. The young black men in that particular vehicle, 5 black men in that vehicle, they got singled out. They followed and pulled over in one of the beat-up spots by the Metropolitan Police Department, you know, and that's what happened. But what was meant to go one way in terms of how the police normally would do things in that particular time, when they run across some young black men, it flipped. It changed the script, and Bill ended up with the upper hand. There's no denial of the fact that a rifle was shot and hit 2 police officers. The problem is with all the cover-up and the missing evidence and all of that stuff, and the injustices and the unconstitutional aspects that surrounds and that's involved in this particular situation. And these are the things that stirs us up on the inside, Dr. Haney, that makes us want to get in the trenches and push this thing, because we feel like that after all these many years in prison, that Bill Allen should be released. You know, Bill Allen was in prison, he was incarcerated, he escaped from prison, stayed on the run for like 13 years of his life. And the reason why it took them so long, it was so hard and so difficult for them to catch Bill Allen, is because he didn't hang out with criminals. See, when a criminal breaks out of prison, he hangs out with criminals. Birds of a feather, they flock together. It was difficult to apprehend Bill Allen because he didn't have that mindset. He didn't hang out in that crowd. You know, it just happenstance they finally tracked Bill Allen down. But he was productive during his escape. And Al Browning did an excellent work on this particular situation in a book that he wrote called On the Run. And there's a sequence to that book which is called Enough is Enough. And Al, he outlined that thing over the years. And you know who I'm talking about because you had him on your show before talking about the book that he wrote and the Bill Allen story and everything. But we're concerned because here it is, he's a 67-year-old black man right now that's a model inmate in the prison system that we feel like should be released from the prison system. We just feel like, you know, and we're appealing to the governor of the state, you know, come on, man, do something, you know, that makes sense. Do something compassionate and let this brother out of the prison system. He's not a threat to anybody on the outside. So it does not serve the state purpose to further incarcerate this man that they know all the circumstances surrounding this thing, that it was wrong in the first place, how they convicted him and how they incarcerated him and how they loaded him up with all these sentences.
Now, Mr. Thompson, you are relatively new to this case. Now, what has your reading and understanding told you about this case that so compelled you to become involved in it from this perspective?
Right. Part of the draw for me was to make sure that I understood the man. And once I started to understand the man, Mr. William Allen, I understood that once other people knew this man, that it would take, hopefully, a different course as far as getting him released. I've interviewed different people in the community, personal friends, politicians, and people in the media. And most recently, I've interviewed Mr. John Siegenthaler, who was in the media. I also interviewed Major BHill. And these are people directly involved in the BHill Allen case. And they made some great points, and I know I don't have enough time to go over them, but one of the major points regarding the justice system, Mr. Siegenthaler stated, and he was someone who admitted that some of the media had a part in maybe helping to convict Mr. Allen because of the inflammatory remarks that were made in the newspapers. And he pointed out that the justice system has two functions. Of course, one, to apprehend those who have broken the law, but it also has the obligation for rehabilitation. And we feel that Mr. Allen is someone who he was rehabilitated before he even entered the justice system, so there's no reason to keep this man at the age of 68 incarcerated when he has helped rehabilitate so many people while in prison. I've talked to so many people who are now released, and they willfully admit their guilt in their crimes. And they almost feel guilty that they're released now, and this man of nonviolence is not. He's made such an impact. The staff at the prison, they respect him. People in the community respect him. And I think it's just time, just as Mr. Siegenthaler said, that the justice system uphold its other obligation, which is for rehabilitation. And I believe Mr. Allen is more than rehabilitated, and it, just as Reverend Walker said, it serves no purpose to keep him incarcerated at this point.
Some final statements in reference to that, Brother Kimbrough. What do you think about BHill Allen? I mean, what's your personal feelings in reference to BHill Allen?
In summary.
Yeah, in summary.
BHill is a model citizen. He's a model prisoner only because the corrupt prison system exists. We went out in 2007 for the purpose of paroling Bill, and the hearing officer asked him, "Why did you kill 2 policemen?" When he responded to that question, and other persons who, some 45 people, some of whom spoke there, she said, "Well, I don't know what the other members of the board will do, but I'm voting for you to be paroled." Now, the problem with that is and was that it was a custodial parole from 99-year unjust sentence to a 7 to 8 year unjust sentence. And the fact that he had been paroled, as far as the parole board went, and
we're going to have to stop for our commercial break here, and we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to our final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Dr. Kimbrough, Ms. Thompson, and Pastor Walker, and the topic is the Bill Allen case, and all three have given some information in reference to the justifications for some consideration in terms of allowing Mr. Bill Allen to leave the prison system. Now, Dr. Kimbrough, as you indicated, how many years has Mr. Allen been in prison now? Well, I mean, outside of that escape period that he was in 6 years prior to the escaping. And then from 86 to the prison. And so they brought him back in custody in 86. And of course, he's still there now. And I think that we might also add, Dr. Kimbrough, and we can pick this information up from you right at this moment, because we've got another show that's coming on that will deal with it. But now, Bill Allen was not the only individual who was involved in this case. Why don't you say something in reference to... There were 5 young black men. Okay. Who were on their way to their home in Cincinnati and dropping Bill off in Hermitage, Old Hickory area, with a gun that he was given to his father, still with a sale tag on it. He was, see, that's one of the beautiful parts about it, is that Mr. Siegenthaler, who was the editor of the Tennessean, has told the immediate past governor, whose name I think everybody knows, Phil Bredesen, that I was wrong. He said to one of his legal persons, but the governor left his plea for clemency on the table and didn't say yes or no to it, which he could have gotten him out at that time. The other thing is, he was not charged with the first-degree murder, and the correction that I should have can be found. He was not. He got 99 years for killing a white policeman. And by the way, we need police officers. Police officers are peacekeepers, not going around to get stories to justify some inadequate or some unapproved action. So he's saying that we are going to. It's not unusual to have a gun in a car when the civil rights movement is on a whirl downhill from blacks and uphill for whites. So he just happened to have had a gun in the car, having stopped the wrong car, a white or at least a light colored 1967 Plymouth, when but present immediate past council person, Melvin Black's brother, was watching this car under surveillance. They didn't follow that car. They followed 5 young black men out of suspicions, just to socialize in a sense, and wondering what they were doing. So there's a grave miscarriage of justice. The judges knew it, didn't allow the defense lawyer to bring up cases about no ballistic test, no ballistic report. The officer who was over that area where the shooting took place, he was not called in and interviewed. It was a hush-hush. It was such a miscarriage of justice. Mr. Thompson, dealing with the media now, how do you think that you might be able to assist the NAACP in bringing some kind of justice for Bill Allen? I mean, what are some of the contacts or some of the things that you have that you might be able to assist him in? Yes, sir. And 2 things. First, I'd like to say that this is not an attempt to place blame. When I met with Mr. Allen, he is one of the most gracious men I've ever met. He is not angry. I don't know how he's maintained that
disposition over these years, but he is not angry. All we want to do is bring justice so that another tragedy doesn't happen to this man at age 68. We don't want him to die in prison. We just want mercy for time served and for people to look at his character and the situation involved. As far as social media, people can go to Facebook.com. The Facebook page is Free Bill Allen, a call for mercy and social justice. And on Twitter, the Twitter name is @FreeBillAllen. So please join those two sites and we will keep you updated with interviews and updates in the case.
And of course, Pastor Walker, you've had many opportunities to go to the prison to talk to Mr. Allen, and I think that you made you made a number of statements in reference to the influence that not only he has had on you, but influence that he's having on the individuals that are there. Why don't you use many minutes that we have left to talk about your relationship with Bill Allen, because I think that you haven't been there yourself, and tell it yourself.
As I was saying at the outset, Dr. Haney, I met him back in 1999, and immediately took a liking to Bill, because Bill is the type of person that you can't help but like. You know, I've always been the type of person that, as I go into the prison system, I'm out there at least once a month, every month now. And you go into the prison system, one of the things I've always had a mindset was that, you know, change the signal that's being beamed from the prison back into society, because what we do, we follow the individual from the crime scene through the courtroom and then up to the gate of the prison system, and then from there we drop them off and it's over with. And then we got this mindset that says everybody in prison deserves to be there, they need to be there. And let me clarify the point that I think if you commit a crime, I've been to prison. I went to prison for committing crimes that I committed. You know, I did it. I was wrong. They got me. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, at the same time, people do change, you know, and I'm not saying that we should not punish people for committing crimes, but if the purpose of my incarceration is to punish me and to rehabilitate me, then a significant number of years served in the penal system is punishment. And then if in the midst of all of that time I'm serving, if I'm personally developing myself far beyond who I used to be, then there's a measure of rehabilitation there, and that should be looked upon. I should not have to approach the parole board every time, and then every time I got to relive, I got to rehash, and you got to retry me for something that happened back in 1968. It just don't make sense. You know, at some point, somebody will say, well, this guy right here, this is who he was when he came in. This had to be something that was out of his character for it to happen in the first place. He spent all of this time serving time in the prison system. These are many of his accomplishments while being in the prison system. Why don't we let him out? Why is it so easy, so simple for us to go and get the white woman that was on death row, let her off death row, and then a month or 2 or 3 months later, she's out the door, she's living a life on the outside. But then you take this other guy who's black American male, and he can't come out. You know, what's up with that? You know, why is it that, you know, the wardens of the prison says they can get people out of prison if they want to. And the governor, of course, they can get people out of the prison system if they wanted to. Why is it that you got a situation with Bill Allen that you don't want him out? Is it because they knew that all the underhanded stuff that surrounded this situation and the unconstitutionality of the jury that supposedly was of his peers? How are you gonna have an all-white jury and call it a jury of your peers? I mean, that's just, I mean, that seems to be a bit unconstitutional there. What constitutes a peer? You know what I'm saying? If I look across the courtroom and everybody in the jury box it don't look like me, then you can't say that they're my peers, because they're not. They're not my peers. So it's so much that has taken place, and so much injustice that took place in this situation. I mean, why is it that you can't find the policeman's revolver? You know, and all that kind of crazy stuff, Dr. Haney, that's taking place.
And of course, what we'll do, we've got another show that will follow this show of 3 additional individuals to talk about the Bill Allen case part 2. And as we said, we're trying to make that real push in order to bring attention to this case and to make people aware of it. And I think that most of the people that we will talk to after this conversation have been involved in the case just as you've been involved in, and they might be able to shed additional light on the case. But I think the most important thing here is to let everybody know that there are as many people that are willing to give up their time to come out in the interest of Bill Allen. And let me thank the three of you for giving us that information. And let me encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning. Thank you and welcome to the show for today. The topic today is the NAACP and the Bill Allen case. And I think for those of members of our audience who might have seen the first part of this show, that this is a two-part series with members of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People talking about the efforts on the part of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People to free Bill Allen from the Tennessee prison. And we have with us today, joining in that effort to free Bill Allen, Major BHill, who has played a very significant role in the Metropolitan Police Department. And with Major Hill is Dr. Kathy Abbott. Dr. Kathy Abbott is also a sympathizer with the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And finally, we have Mr. Ndume, who also had an opportunity, or who also served with Mr. Bill Allen for a period in the Tennessee prison, and he will give us some information in terms of Bill in prison. And let's start off, Major Hill, by having you to give us some statements in reference to who you are and your situation. Dr. Abbott will do the same thing, and of course Mr. Ndume will do the same thing, and then we'll be able, by the second segment, to get into some of the real issues dealing with this case.
Well, my name is BHill. I'm a retired Metro Police officer. I served with the Metro Police officers 33 years, from 59 to 1990. In serving with the police department, I had various jobs. I worked my way up through the command level, and in doing my job, I came upon information that other people really didn't have access to. And this Bill Allen case really interested me because there are so many entanglements in it. And I think justice delayed is justice denied.
Very good. And of course, Dr. Abbott, let's talk about you and the Bill Allen case in reference to the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, as well as any other statements that you'd like to make in reference to this case.
Well, I became acquainted with the Bill Allen case through our pastor, and he told me the story, and I immediately became both upset and I wanted to do something because of the injustices. I met Bill in prison, and I found that he's an extraordinary man. He is a gentleman, he's kind, he's well-spoken, and he has no resentment or anger toward the system. But he has developed his own character and understanding through the years when he has tried through the justice system to find some kind of a way to right the wrongs that have been done. And I've done a little bit of writing to help support the cause. And I am looking forward with faith to believing that the people are going to hear what we have to say, and they're going to understand Bill and the fact that, as he explained it, it was self-defense, basically. We have to understand the time. It was a time of paranoia and anger and hatred on both sides. But it was a time when things took place that we wouldn't ordinarily see today.
Very good. And Mr. Ndume, what about your situation? You met Bill under different kinds of situations than the rest, many of us.
Yes, indeed I did. I just came home myself after spending 28 years in prison. 20 of them was on Tennessee's death row for a crime that I ain't commit. I came home June 1st of last year, and I had the pleasure of meeting Bill Allen roughly 9 years or so ago. I mean, I knew about his situation, you know, prior to that. I think that his case is certainly an important case, and it speaks to, like the doctor said, some of the social ills that was going on at the time, and I think they're still alive and going on today. But the reality is that I would reiterate what the previous guest said about Bill Allen, also too, and the two guests I'm up here with now, that he is a person that certainly deserves his freedom. Bill Allen is somebody that, like the previous guest said, that's he's a compassionate person. He's certainly a leader inside the prison system. And,
very good. And of course, let us take this first commercial break, and then we'll be back with you. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. The topic is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and the Bill Allen case. And we're talking to Mr. Ndume, who served with Mr. Bill Allen in the Tennessee prison, and who has already indicated that he spent some 28 years in the prison system, with many years on death row. And I'm sure that he has some additional information to talk about, and we will start with him, which we will follow up with Dr. Abbott, and of course after Dr. Abbott has made some statements, we will come back and end this segment with Major BHill. And of course, let's talk about some of your in-house relationships, and let's talk about the fact that you were on the. Am I correct in saying that you were on death row in the Tennessee prison for 28 years?
For 20 years, actually. I spent 20 years on Tennessee's death row, and another 8 years before I was released just June 1st of last year. So it's not even been a year since I've been home, actually. So.
And so you're a great inspiration in terms of what we're talking about here, because you were there, and you would make some more statements in reference to.
Bill Allen, like I say, Bill Allen is certainly somebody that the community need out here. You know, when you just look at some of the problems with young people getting involved in crime and ending up in the system, Bill Allen is certainly somebody that needs to be home and doing some of the good work that me and other people are out here actually doing to curb some of the stuff that that's actually occurring. And Bill Allen, like I said, he's certainly somebody that's well respected in the prison system. Like previous guests actually said, that he's a person that inmates, young and old, look to for advice. He's always got, if he don't have something good and positive to say, he don't have nothing to say. I think this is a person that you know, our community certainly needs. When you look at his situation, you know, during the time that, like previous guests said, that we was living in a time where racism was certainly an issue then as it is now. I think that partly why he is he's not been released, racism still plays some effect in that, but the bottom line is this is a person that certainly deserves his freedom. I think that, like I said, I can't emphasize that enough, that this is a person that certainly, previous guest spoke about him being rehabilitated. The reality is that this was not a person that, like Reverend Walker said, this was not a person that was had any problems before. It was just an unfortunate situation that led to him actually ending up in the situation that he actually did. But this is a person that you know, didn't have any issues. He was certainly a leader in the community then, and he's a leader in the community that he's in right now. And we certainly do need him out here. I think that, like I said, I can't emphasize that enough. He certainly had a lot of influence on me. You know, he was certainly one of the people that I sit down with for counsel. You know, when I had to deal with certain issues, like a lot of inmates actually do. You know, he's a person that people look to for advice.
Very good. And Dr. Abbott, I think you mentioned the fact that you writing some information in reference to Bill's case and et cetera. Why don't you give us some more statements in terms of some of the things that have had an impact upon you concerning this man?
When I first got involved with this, I wanted to know, how could this happen? How could this man be where he is? So I went back, I read the books, On the Run and Enough is Enough, and then I met with Bill at Riverbend, and I asked as many questions as I could. And for those who are not familiar with the story, who may be looking at this today, 1968, Bill and 4 of his young gentleman friends were in a car. He was going home. The other boys were going to Cincinnati, back to their home. One of the boys had been in town looking at school for graduate studies. These were not criminal type people at all, but they were singled out for whatever reason, and there may have been some underlying reasons that haven't been proven or spoken about. They were singled out, and there was an overreaction because of the times on the part of the policemen. The young men in the car were frightened because they had no reason for being followed, but they were being followed. And one of the things that was denied during the case was that the young men were shot at by the police, but the ballistics completely disappeared. Officer Thompson in prison, excuse me, not in prison, but in the hospital before he died, 40 or 45 days later, is that right, Major Hill?
Right.
Had said, yes, there were 4 or 5 shots, that they got 4 or 5 shots off. And the reason for the shooting, as Bill explains it at the time, was that one of the men went down. He thought he'd been shot because there was shooting from the police side. So that's when he grabbed the rifle that was on his way to his dad's for a gift and shot back. And all of this, of course, happened in 10, 15 seconds. 10 or 15 seconds and a lifetime in prison. It seems out of proportion, doesn't it? It was an all-white jury. The judge refused to hear any testimony whatsoever about the influence of the times. And he also refused to hear anything that questioned the action of the Metro Police Department at the time. And Major Hill can speak about that. He said, I'm not going to try the Metro Police Department. So there were circumstances that influenced the case that were not allowed to be presented, even at that time.
And of course, Major Hill, you were a young police officer at the time, were you not?
Yes, I was.
And why don't you start us off here? We've got about a minute left in this segment, and then we'll come back with 10 minutes, and then we'll pick up with you again. Why don't you start us off in reference to some of the things that are on your mind now?
In order for people to understand, you had to live in that day and that time. You see, we did all the research we could on Bill Allen and never could connect him with any other crime, any racial group, or any foreign powders or black power people, you know, and I wonder, it makes me wonder, what is society so against him coming out into society when even his peers and the people that's over him in prison said he's a good man, he's a positive influence, and they are for him, but I believe it's politics.
Okay, and of course, let us take this final break, and then we'll come back with our audience following this short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Major Hill, Ndume, and Ms. Kathy Abbott about the Bill Allen case, and this is the second of two shows that we've done dealing with the efforts on the part of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People to perhaps make a plea, a final plea, and I think many of them have been making these pleas for the last 12 or 15 years to somehow get Bill Allen out of the Tennessee prison. And Major Hill, let's give you an opportunity to make some statements, some final statements in reference to efforts to bring Bill out. And we will follow that up with Dr. Kathy Abbott and Mr. Ndume. We want you to sort of wind up the whole thing because your situation is really a very, very unique situation, especially you've been there, and not only have you been there, you were actually on death row for 20 years, you say?
Yes.
Yeah, we want to talk to you about that at another time, but let's start off, Major Hill, give us some information in reference to
this Bill Allen case is very unusual, but you got to put yourself back into the 60s. The whole community was fearful then. Paranoia was running wild in the white community. They thought that black people were going to take over the neighborhood. Inflammatory statements by the news media and television, and it had Nashville in a state where it could have just blown over. And people were fearful. The police department was fearful. And when they'd send them out at night, they wanted to investigate anything that looked unusual. And so they would stop a car with 4 or 5 blacks in it, thinking that maybe this is the big break. You know, the conditions back then were terrible on both sides. You know, fear was running rampant. And around the college campuses, we, and I say we, I was one of the people, we were very fearful of things going on that we didn't know about. You know, so situations brought that about, but it has nothing to do with the man we're talking about today. He has served time. You know, they let other people out of prison who committed theft and this sort of thing. When they let them out, there's no real rehabilitation. They come right back. But a person accused of a crime like BHill, they're not repeat people because deep down they're not criminals. I met BHill about 6 years ago, and since that time we've communicated every week, and I find him to be a fine, upstanding young man that could contribute something to the community. You know, a person that takes a leadership in a prison and other prisoners go to him for advice and stuff, why not bring that man out? Because he's not a danger to the community.
Right.
You know, he's maintained a decorum that a lot of people couldn't have done, and keep the attitude he has. And that attitude is infectious. It goes to the people that he meets and associates with. I hope to God that people forget politics and look at the justice side of that and let him come out and be of service to the total community.
Very good. Dr. Abbott, any statements in reference to what Major Hill has said?
Well, I have a couple of things. I was very impressed as well, as we've all said, with Bill. He has also been a father to his two sons who have visited him regularly in prison. He and his wife have been every weekend for all the time that he's been there. The boys have been raised, they've been disciplined, they've been encouraged, they've been everything that a father could do in the time that was allotted to him, they did. One of the sons has graduated from college, the other is still working. But they're fine men, and it's a fine family. Another thing that I found in my research was that one of the privileges and the powers of being a governor is the ability to exercise not only justice but mercy. And the two of them are supposed to go together. And that clemency is a form of mercy. But because of the man that Bill is now, as you said, let us deal with the person who he is now. The case has gone on, and it's gone with court. But what we have fundamentally is a man who needs to be in society for his sake and for our sake.
Into May?
Yes, I think that I would just reiterate what Major Hill said and Dr. Abbott said about the importance of having someone like Bill Allen home in the community, because like Major Hill said, that this is certainly somebody that's a leader, and this is somebody that leads by example with respect to how a responsible man should walk and act. And like I said, having spent the last 8 years with Bill Allen before I came home myself, that I've seen the influence that he, not only the influence that he had on me, but also too, more importantly, the influence that he had on a lot of other young inmates and old inmates alike. Like I said, this is somebody that people go to for advice when they need somebody to show some compassion or show some understanding based on his wisdom and understanding. He's certainly one of those people in the prison system that that not only inmates go to, but also he get sound advice to officers as well too. I think that the same effect that he actually has inside the prison in terms of having this calming effect, in terms of being able to, create a safe environment. I mean, prison is a dangerous environment. But when you have somebody like Bill Allen and you know, inside, that actually has a common effect, and the same effect that he has inside, I know he would have the same effect outside, because it's, I think, in part, some of the stuff that you actually see going on with our children out here is because I mean, the reality is racism and the politics, like Major Hill said, that what happens is that because the prison industry then became what it is, an industry, you have certain people sitting up projecting their future profits on our children that's in the 2nd and the 3rd grade based on some of their reading scores. So they already trying to plan a prison cell for them. And so we need people like Bill Allen out here to ensure that our children has somebody that can give them some sound advice, not only about what he was doing prior to his imprisonment, but also to his long experience of being in prison and just seeing what can happen, this proliferation of people coming in with more and more time at younger and younger ages. So we need him out here. We're gonna work hard and continue to work hard until we bring him home. We need him.
I think the final word here, if I may have it, is to simply say that I think we might have a very, very unique kind of situation